Well, hey guys, it's me, MetalMan8713 here again. How's it going? I'm here to bring you a brand new video today. This time, I'm going to be talking about the history of a rock group which I've been listening to for a very long time, and that is Judas Priest, right here. So yep. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the beginnings of Judas Priest, their origins, right up to their 1978 staying class. And then after this video I may make 2 or 3 videos after this one covering the rest of Judas Priest's history. So for this video I'm going to be talking about again Judas Priest from their beginnings up to 1978 staying class. Enjoy this video. Peace. Well, I'll say once more, if you haven't heard from the title, this is the history of Judas Priest. This is part 1 of 4 videos which I'm going to be making, and in this video I'm going to talk about Judas Priest from their origins in 1969 in Birmingham, right up to 1978 staying class, their fourth Judas Priest album and subsequent tour. So yep, and before they adopted their leather and studs image. Yep. Oh well, where shall I start now? Before I talk about Judas Priest formation, I'll just have a little talk about the members and some of the members in the early days. There were 3 people who knew each other since early childhood, and those were Ian Hill, K.K. Downing, and a drummer, called John Ellis. They've known each other since their childhood in West Bromwich, and they all shared the same musical interests. And later on in their teens, they became friends, and before that they attended Churchfield School in West Bromwich. So yep. The original, now Judas Priest, the original version of the band, well, just before I say it, the lineup of K.K. Downing, Ian Hill and John Ellis is the next lineup after the lineup which I talk about now. The original Judas Priest were formed in September 1969 by a vocalist called Al Atkins, John Partridge, John Perry and Bruno Stappenhill, who played guitars, bass and drums respectively. But unfortunately afterwards Perry died in a car crash as soon as the band formed. After the band formed, and he was in the band, and he was replaced by Ernie Chataway, who later became Judas Priest's manager. The band played their first gig in 1969 in Walsall, West Bromwich. So yep, at the George Hotel to be exact, in Walsall, Staffordshire, not West Bromwich. And then throughout the Christmas season, December 1969 up to 1970, they toured Scotland. But then, unfortunately, that lineup of the band split up after their final gig on the 20th of April 1970 at the youth centre. At the youth centre in, I'm sorry if I'm looking at my iPad now and again, They played at the youth centre in Cannock in Staffordshire, so yep. After that, the band split up afterwards. But the story doesn't end there, though. In October 1970, Al Atkins met the next lineup of Judas Priest. They were in a band called Freight. The other 3 members who I talked about, K.K. Downing, Ian Hill and John Ellis, they were in a band called Freight. They were a trio, and then Al Atkins joined that band, and then after that he suggested using his former band's name, Judas Priest. So they went with that name, and then afterwards Freight, now Judas Priest, moved away from their original blues rock. I'm just going to put the tripod down for a moment. They moved away from their blues influence to play hard rock and heavy metal, and K.K. Downing was the acting leader. So yep. The band experienced a few more lineup changes at the drum position. John Ellis left, and he was replaced by Alan Moore, who later appeared on who he had 2 stints with the band. This was his first. Who later appeared on Sad Winds of Destiny, which I'm gonna be talking about that later. So yeah. Well, the band toured throughout the early 1970s, supporting bands like Budgie, Black Sabbath, you know, bands like that in that genre, and and they also did a few shows in Europe as well, mainly in clubs, you know, headlining. So yeah, and also the band toured around the United Kingdom around the same time. So yeah. In 1973, the band experienced difficulty with Tony Iommi's management company, and then it led to the departure of Al Atkins and drummer Alan Moore in May 1973. The Tony Iommi's management company, which they were having problems with, was called IMA, which I'll say again, led to the departure of Al Atkins and drummer Alan Moore in May 1973. Rob Halford's sister was dated Ian Hill at the time, so when the band were looking for a singer, she suggested her brother, Rob Halford, who become the band's new lead vocalist. So he joined the band in May 1973, and he brought along a bandmate of his called John Hinch. They were both in a local band called Hiroshima. So yeah, and also Rob Halford was a former cinema manager around the same time, so I think he quit that job as well to concentrate on his singing career. Yep. And then eventually, and then also the lineup toured the UK and they even did some shows in Norway and stuff, Norway supporting Budgie, and they did a few headlining shows as well. So yeah. Just before the band enters the studio to record their first album, Aurora, they sign with a independent record label called Gull Records, which they had later problems with. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. After the sign and before they entered the studio to record their first album, Aurora, the record company suggests they add another musician to the lineup. KK Downing didn't really want a keyboard or horn player in the band, so they suggest getting another guitarist. So they got Midlands guitarist Glenn Tipton from the Staffordshire-based band called the Fine Hat Band. So yeah, and then Stratford-based band. So yeah. And then afterwards, the band and the two guitarists that worked together on the existing material. So yep. During the recording of Aurora, there were problems between the band and the producer, who was producing the album, Roger Byrne, who produced Black Sabbath's very first 3 albums and Budgie's first 2 albums. He made decisions which the band did not agree with. He left fan favourites off Sad Winds of Destiny, such as Tyrant, Genocide, The Ripper, amongst other classics off the album. He cut the song off the first album, Caviars and Meths, from a 10-minute instrumental down to a 2-minute song. 10-minute song down to a 2-minute instrumental. So yep. And also the band released their debut single, Aurora, in August 1974. And also on Aurora. And also, again, these decisions what Roger Byrne made, he dominated the album's production. He did not make decisions which the band agreed with. I'll say once again, which all these problems which I mentioned have resulted in a poor quality sound on the album and technical sound on the album. So. I'll say once again, the band released their debut single Aurora in August 1974, and then they later brought out a debut album of the same name, which the cover, under the cover, the original cover, looked like this. I'm just gonna show you here. Let me show you. I mean, it had Judas Priest and it had it in the form of a Coke bottle. Had the name of the album on a Coke bottle, and then when the album was remastered in 1987, the band changed the cover. The band did not. Wait. I'll just. And so yeah, I'll just quickly show you the cover right there of Aurora, right there. So yep, that was the original cover, and then the remaster cover looked like this. So yeah. Later on, the band toured in support of this album, and then they later expanded their fan base. They even toured around the UK, and they had dates in Europe, like in Germany, Holland, Norway, Denmark, again, and also they had one shot to Hotel Kluben in Tonsberg, and there was one show from Oslo in Norway which had gained a negative review from the press, and also but when if you heard about and also when I mentioned problems the band had at Gull Records, there's a problem. The first album flopped when it came out, so it left the band in financial dire straits. So the band went to the label to ask them if they could pay Priest like £50 a week, like a raise. But the record company was in dire straits as well. So they disagreed, and they wouldn't let the band pay. They wouldn't get the band paid £50 a week. So yep, the bonus, the raise. So yep. And also, in 1975, the band performed at the Reading Festival, which later expanded their fan base and widened Priest's appeal to a wider audience. So yep. And songs from Aurora weren't really played on the tour until what was supposed to be Judas Priest's final tour, the Epitaph World Tour, which they played Never Satisfied from the first album. But yet again, all the other songs weren't really played after 1976. So yeah. John Hinch was fired in 1975. You know, I think it was musical. It was due to musical inequality. Musical inequality with the other band members, and he was replaced by former drummer Alan Moore, who later appeared on Judas Priest's second album, Sad Winds of Destiny. So yep, the band re-entered the studio in 1975 to record that album, and they recorded some of the fan favourites which was left at the first album, and the band participated more in the production than they did with the last album, and the album was recorded in the latter part of 1975, and upon release, it came out in 1976. Upon release, it came out in 1976. The album included a variety of old material for the band. So, yeah, and then. It included many stage favourites such as The Ripper, the progressive epic Victim of Changes, Gendercide, Tyrant, amongst others, you know, an Epitaph as well, Island of Domination, amongst others. Yep. And the band started shifting more from a psychedelic sound to more hard rock heavy metal. It started to shift more into that style, and it got proper heavy metal, then it shifted to pure heavy. It started shifting towards more heavier, pure heavy metal by 1978. So yep. Victim of Changes was a combination of Whiskey Woman. It was a stage classic when Al Atkins was in Judas Priest, and Red Light Lady, which was a song that Rob Halford had written with his previous band, Hiroshima. So, yep. Well, so yep. Yet again, a performance at the Reading Festival in 1975, I could say it expanded their fan base. So, yep. But the band was still having problems with their record label in 1976. Well, the record label wouldn't allow to pay the band money, and the band were in dire straits, such as sleeping in a van outside the studio. This is another example before they recorded their first album. So yep. And well, but a major record deal came along by Columbia Records, and so yep. And then later on, the band also shifted management as well, and they also left Cool Records, and then they signed with CBS Columbia Records. So yep. But there was some consequences to this. As a result, the band lost all the rights to the recordings of their first two albums, except they own copyright ownership of the songs themselves. So, yep. And Ghoul Records since then has been like releasing compilations of very early Judas Priest songs from the first two albums. So, yep. In 1976, Alan Moore left the band, but this time for good, permanently. So, yep. So when the band went into the studio to record their third album, Sin After Sin, they brought in a session drummer called Simon Phillips. So Simon Phillips, who was on the album, the band recorded. They had some stage classics, such as Sin After Sin, Diamonds and Rust, Starbreaker, and Distant Aggressor, which was later covered by Slayer on their 1988 album, South of Heaven. Yep. And the album was produced by Roger Glover, who was bass player for Deep Purple, former bass player at the time for Deep Purple, and Deep Purple was disbanded at the time, so they didn't reunite till 1984. But this is not about Deep Purple, this is about Judas Priest, so yep. Well, the band offered Simon Phillips to become a permanent member of the band, but he refused, and then he left after the album's recording and release. So he was replaced by drummer Les Binks for the supported tour, and it was also the band's very first tour in America. They supported acts such as Foreigner, but supported acts such as Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, and amongst other acts. So yeah, and the tour was a very great success as well. The band were impressed with Les Binks' performance, so they asked him to stay. And the band recorded Stained Class in 1978, which was less progressive-y than the previous albums, and started to move towards more pure heavy metal. Yep. Which the band later became part of the new album, New Wave of British Heavy Metal in the early 80s, which I'm going to talk about in the next video. And this album actually is the only Judas Priest album where there's songwriting by all 5 members, and it included one of the very few songwriting contributions from Ian Hill. He co-wrote 2 songs on the very first album, and a song called Invader off the Stained Class album. So yep, and then the band went on tour again to support the album, which was again very successful, expanding their fan base, and yep. And Les Binks wrote a very classic Judas Priest song on that album called Beyond the Realms of Death. So yep. When I return in my next video, I'm going to be talking about Judas Priest's rise to mainstream success, their years as rock and roll superstars in the 80s, and the band gets a new drummer So yep, I'll see you in my next video, in part 2 of this video. So yep, peace.